Thank you very much. First, I want to thank you, Ashley and Jen, for incredible dinner last night, an incredible event that you put together. And I would like to acknowledge the presence of two very courageous mothers, Nicole, I'm sorry if I'll pronounce your last name wrongly, Salas, and Gabrielle Clark. Thank you for coming. They have incredible courage, and I think their personal stories, personal courage and action are inspiring parents and people across the country, and that's very important in our fight. Thank you. Looking back a year ago, I launched the movement, and I'm having really a hard time to believe that we are what we are in 1 year. Because when I was just a stay-at-home mom, a very happy one of 3 boys, and intended to be like that for a long time, and having grandchildren, etc., until one day I'm getting this incredible letter from the principal who telling us that the school plan for the lesson the next day for the children is going to be changed in light of all the uprising around the country after the death of George Floyd. And just reading that one page changed my life and the course of my life, because in that one page, it encapsulated what they're planning to do to our children, and eventually what I realized they're planning to do to our country. And reading the lesson plan and looking at the books that they had the kids learn the next day made it very clear at what trajectory we are going to be, going. So the first thing I did, obviously, like many parents around the country, decided to write to our superintendent and the school board members, as well as the principal, still believing and trusting the system. And I think that was one of our major problems that we have discovered over the year, that we as parents blindly trusted the school system, the teacher, superintendent, that not to say, and I'll say it even now in the beginning, that there are not a lot of outstanding, fabulous teachers, principals, counselors who have really the best interests of our children in mind. However, when I wrote that letter, I did not expect not to get a reply. I think that's all the parents who wrote letters to principals and superintendent and teachers and school board members expected at least a reply. Well, after all, we're taxpayers. We deserve at least a reply to a letter that we write. But of course, we got nothing, and that's the experience that has been shared with me from across the country from a lot of parents, that they're being ignored. Being ignored, and we are all locked down in our home with the COVID and the unknown of what spread or doesn't spread the disease. The only really way of communication is through social media. I'm posting my letter to the superintendent on the Facebook of the parents at the school, and asking simply what Ian here encouraged us all to do: have a discussion. Let's hear what the opinion of other parents in the community and in the school. And I did not expect to literally be a target with people standing around and shooting at me with all the name callings that a lot of us experience. They did call me all the names in the book, and I was really puzzled, because I looked at the name of the people who were shooting at me and lynching me, said, I do not know them. How do they know all those wonderful things about me? So I really decided to take it a step further and posted my letter to other websites, or actually Facebook pages in my community. And I said, I'm sure there are really other parents or other people that will look at it and give some thought, give me some idea of what they're thinking. And the same experience, either they won't post it or they will shoot it down. However, That's another experience was that on the other hand, when on one hand I'm getting lynched publicly, privately I've been getting a lot of private messages, not only from parents, grandparents, concerned citizens, and cheering me up, congratulating me. At the same time, everybody's sharing the same message. We are afraid. Actually, we talk about it all the time, how people are still afraid. And that puzzled me because, yeah, I'm a professional. I come from a professional background. I have my degrees in social work. I worked in the field, and I came to this country, to this fabulous country that has all the freedom in the world. People are knocking on the door, risking their life for their babies and children to cross the border and come here for the freedom that this country offers. And people are afraid to talk and are afraid from people that don't know them and a thing about them, calling them names. And that's when I decided, you know what? It doesn't make sense to me. And the other thing that pulled me into deciding to launch the movement is my personal background. As you can hear from my accent, I'm not American. I'm American, but I was not born here. I'm Israeli, and I'm looking at the history of my people, the Jewish people around the world, and my people in Israel. And I learned one very important lesson from our history. We know what happens to us when we are afraid and we don't stand up. We know what happens to us when we don't talk. Speak up and act. And I decided this is not going to happen to us here. I'm afraid. And you know why I was afraid? Because we had a very violent summer. We all remember the riots. We all remember the destruction, the violence, the looting, and for what? It was not for George Floyd. We know that. So I was looking around and I said, yeah, I am afraid and I have little kids. Am I going to stick, my life out and put my family in danger? But at the same time, I realized that I'm more afraid if I won't do anything. That was more fearful for me if I'll just stand and let it happen, because I knew they're not going to stop. I knew that this is not something that is going to go away by itself. We have to stand up and fight if we want to win this. So, okay, I'm launching a movement. What am I doing? What do you do? What's the next step? So I decided I'm going to fight it. So what's next? So I wrote several of the parents, actually mothers, one of them that I never met before, only in Little League with my son, and other handful mothers that supported me through messages. And I said, come to my living room. I'm launching a movement. That's it. Thank you. And those handful mothers came to my living room, and we are trying to figure out what to do and how to do. And that started actually a process of maybe a week or so that I was bombarded with ideas. One told me, actually she was a lawyer who came to my home later on and said, your goal should be just remove that one book that the teacher assigned to the children. Another one gave me an idea, you should, just focus on your school district. And this is wonderful. We are sitting and thinking about ideas. However, already from the beginning, I realized this is a bigger problem than one book. We're removing one book, but I didn't know that they're already having so many books in the process of being published, but I knew it's not a matter of one book. And the book was not my idea, a book about whiteness. By now, it's a very famous book. So as we are sitting together and thinking how to start, apparently it became also one more issue became very apparent. My kids were in public school, so I thought it's a problem of public schools. But it didn't take long. When I say it didn't take long, I don't think it took even an hour to realize that it's a problem for all kids in America. Public, parochial, charter, private charter, public charter, All school in America, all parents, all kids, when I say all, I don't know literally all, but it's saying basically it's not a problem, just was particular to parents or to children in public schools. So right away I said, look, we are talking about the kids of America. This is our society. We live in that society. So we are basically embracing everybody. We are working to address the needs of everybody. I know there were a lot of people that questioning eventually also the name of our organization because they thought it's partisan, implying partisanship, no left turn in education. But from the very beginning, we stated that this is really a grassroots movement of common sense people. There's no right, there is no left, there is no middle, there's no top, there's no down. This is really for everybody. Everybody who think that this is about right and wrong, that what is being done to our kids in school is very wrong, but they are being taught is very wrong. And then we needed to clarify that one. So first of all, we are for all the kids, regardless of what school they go to. Second, it's really a nonpartisan. If we look at our mission statement talks about it. We would like basically to have, to restore the fundamental of the education, focusing on critical thinking, on active thinking, on reason, on fact-based education, and not, personal stories as much as they're important. And I can tell you as a social worker, personal stories are very important. But that's not what drives the narrative of a nation. And so already from the get-go, it was very clear that those two issues in terms of our target population, as well as being really embracing everybody, and it's not about a political issue. The third thing was, what are we focusing on? I'll tell you what, until I really started getting into the issue, I never heard the word critical, and the expression critical race theory. And I was educated in this country. I got my master's and doctorate in this country. And I was in social work. And in social work, I never heard the term critical race theory. So all of a sudden, I'm really not understanding what they're talking about. And only thing I heard was cultural proficiency, because that's the term that the principal used in the letter to the parents. So I was on a very, very steep learning curve to see really what is really going on. I needed to educate myself, and I'm still on that learning curve. I cannot talk about the subject like Ian or Love or the other people that are, speaking about this issue, because they have been, delved into this issue for such a long time. For me, it's a new issue. However, I'm still, every day, I'm trying to devote a little bit time to educate myself. There are a lot of challenges that I encounter when I launched the movement. I guess the biggest one was when about 3 weeks after I launched the movement, I got a call, and I was on Tucker Carlson Tonight Show. And literally overnight, from having about 200 people visiting our website, we got over 1 million people, and tens of thousands of emails, messages, comments, a lot of despair, a lot of anxiety, a lot of cry for help, and at the same time, a lot of people who want to do something but didn't know what to do. I don't have a magic wand. I did not have all the answer, and I still don't have all the answer. So my social worker in me wanted to contact each one of them, hold their hands, talk to each one, encourage them, support them. Not realistic. I do have a wonderful husband and working his full-time job, but he jumped in and started reading a lot of the messages and sorting through and telling me, okay, you got to respond to this one can wait a little bit. And finally, we started to organize into chapters. And now we have over half of the state in the country. We have chapters, multiple chapters in over half of the states, very active. And I don't have to tell them what to do, because most of the beautiful idea, creative idea, and genuine ideas coming from the ground. We are providing the structure at the top. We are providing the support. We facilitate, but we are not the one that are really, it's very, very organic, coming really from the field. And there is a lot of cross-fertilization among our chapters. So this is a big problem that was solved. I don't have the answer for everybody, and I still don't. But as a group, we have a lot of advice, support, and answer, and the cross-fertilization has been working very well. Another big challenge, as I mentioned earlier, I have little kids. My little one is 9, my middle one is 11, and I have an older kid's 20, and I have personal life, and all of a sudden my life is on hold. How am I juggling? And that's what all of us are doing, because we are not paid to do that, whereas Will talked about it before, they are very well funded on the other side. They are working full-time position with lots of benefit, etc. And we are moms with children, with, many of us also have jobs. So how we juggle all this when this issue is so important, and we do understand and we do feel that this is indeed protecting our own children and eventually also our families, our communities, and our nation. This fight, it is a fight for our children and our nation. So how do we juggle all this? Very tough, because obviously, not everybody, when they're volunteering, can volunteer a full-time job. I'm doing it more than a full-time job, don't sleep much, but I do not demand that or ask that from anybody. So basically, I'm embracing everybody who's coming to volunteer and asking them to do whatever, or give whatever they can give. But it's very tricky. So that's another challenge of working in this kind of grassroots movement, is recruiting volunteer and managing volunteers. People who work with volunteers know it's more than a full-time job. How to engage them, keep them engaged, how to maintain them, and when somebody leaves, how you fill up that space. One of our key positions just left a week ago, and I need to find somebody else to fill up that position, but he's a volunteer and the other person is volunteer. So this is really a major issue, juggling all those volunteers and keeping them engaged and keeping them busy. When we decided on our focus, also there was very important, and again, I'll refer to what Bill said earlier, very important to determine what you do and what you don't do. And we very much in the beginning determined that what we do, and it is in our mission statement, we are really would like to get all indoctrination and all politicization out of schools. It's not about one ideology or the other. It's not if you teach this book, teach the other side. And I always say there are no two sides. There are endless number of sides. So we cannot think about one or the other. It's really multiple sides. So what indeed we're going to do is really focus on, I don't care if it's coming right, left, on what side. It's all indoctrination, all politicization out of school, and stay focused on what we used to call the 3 R's. So that's really helped us very much focus. So when, some organization focus on one or the other, we said, when we say all, because people ask me specifically, what do you mean all? The way it looks now on the plate, and it pretty much the way it looked from the very get-go, what we call CRT, in whatever euphemism they use, comprehensive sexuality education, 1619 project, and science and math. And in fact, when I said that in the very early days about science and math, people looked at me quite weird, because at that time we did not have what they term now ethnomath and ethnoscience. But now we have that, and now it's also social emotional learning. Obviously, everything started to morph into other forms. But from the get-go, it was very clear we are not kind of negotiating, because now we also found out what was very clear. They're all interlocked. As some of the speakers here mentioned that. They're all interlocked. And our kids are bombarded with that all day long. I would like also to say, in terms of our focus, when we decided to focus on what they're doing actually in school and clean the curriculum, we also decided to focus on what is called the 4 E's. So people know what kind of action are we taking. So it's nice mission statement, but how you actually make it workable. What does it look like on the ground when you act? So on the ground, we decided to make it simple in terms of identify it as 4 E's. The first E is educating. And educating has 2 sides to it, and I was very happy. I think Ian mentioned that as well. The one side, very critical, is the exposing. What actually they're doing and filing for right to know, and there are a lot of fights that you hear around the country for school are really not transparent, and fighting parents, and we have the parents here that are asked to pay exuberant amount of money just because she wanted to know what they're teaching her kids. So that's one thing, is really working very hard to expose. The other side is the offering alternatives. And in fact, when they talked about what kind of exposure there is to the 7076 Unite curriculum, we posted them already on our website since they came out, because Albert is right here. Albert, the teacher, helped write some of those curriculums, and he's a co-chair of our teachers committee. We right away, whenever there were any curriculum available, we post it on our website so we can offer the alternatives. We are getting emails from parents saying, what alternative? I want to go to the superintendent. I want to go to the teachers. What shall I show them? So as much as possible, we are working hard in order to provide the alternative. So the education has the 2 sides, exposing and providing alternative. The second is empowering. One of the most critical issue is, again, people are afraid. So what do you do to deal with that fear? And I believe the best thing to deal with that fear is come together. If you're alone going and facing a school board or superintendent or any entity, is quite intimidating, can be very intimidating. But if you go with a group of people and you coordinate even ahead of time and decide who is speaking, what they're addressing, what is the issue, and you know in advance what is on the agenda of the school board, it's very important. And that's something that we are working with all our people to help them come together and provide them with the tool how to confront the school board and how to present. And also on our website, we have a lot of examples of parents, teachers, students, and even ordinary citizen taxpayers who presented at school board, so it can inspire people. They can see how others are doing it, and they can inspire people. So empowering is in the sense of bringing together and providing tools. And the third E is engagement. In engagement, we decided again to focus on 3 areas. One area, and that's we have Gabrielle Clark here, our first case, our first lawsuit of a parents against the school. She approached me about a week after I was on Tucker, and eventually in a few weeks I matched her with a lawyer, and it is a case in a federal court. That was very important because a lot of parents started now, not then, realizing that it's so problematic and maybe the solution should be in the courts. And I've been getting a lot of messages from parents and teachers. In fact, Deborah Tampon is also here. She's one of the teachers from New York who approached me, and also I helped her with matching her with a lawyer, and they were able to settle it before it went to court, and that's good. The school caved in. So this is really one area that we are working, is the legal area. The second area is the legislative. And we heard from different speakers here just noting about it. It is important to address also our legislators in each state. There are a series of legislation that I have our legislative committee working on. One of them they already addressed. I know there are some people think it's the wrong way of going, but again, there are multiple approaches and people can work with whatever work in their state and in their circumstances. One of the first legislation, a model legislation, and it's offered on our website, is to ban indoctrination and politicization in the schools. So that's another approach, the legislation. And Deborah had a question when we were chatting on the side, when Ian was presenting about school board. I wanted to know how you're actually going to police the teachers. You don't know, the school board can make a decision that X and Y is not going to happen. But how are you going to police it in the classroom? I've heard from many teachers that say to me, I close the door and I do whatever I want. So one of our legislative committee is working on is, in fact, instituting cameras in the classroom. So we'll see, in some cases it will work, some cases it won't work, but that's an idea. That's another idea. So we are exploring different ideas. The table is open and we are welcoming any ideas. So on the legislative front, our people, I can tell you right now, in many states, have been meeting with legislators and discussing this issue. They've been doing a lot of work of exposing what's happening in different school districts and bringing it to the legislator and educating the legislator. Be surprised how many really are not aware of what's happening. That's a second area of engagement. And the third area is the most obvious, the civic. We encourage parents to exercise their civic duty. Go to the school board, and Ian said it many times, and I cannot repeat it enough. Get engaged. If you can be a school candidate for a school board, please do. If not, support one. Go knock on doors. This is the most effective. We are learning it from around the country. The most effective way is knocking on doors and talking to people, having the face-to-face contact. So exercise your civic duty. In each chapter, we're having different ideas of how they are doing it. So this has been very effective. Another important element when you're working as a grassroots and you're starting, from the get-go, try to find like-minded. And from the very, very beginning, as we were very small and just started, the message that I sent to everybody, find like-minded individual. Find like-minded groups, organizations, whomever you can, and come together. And we are, again, as Will said before, we don't have the resources that they have, not in manpower, not in funding, not in any other way, and they've been doing that for decades, and we are just woke up. So please, this is something very critical for us to find each other, network, come together, share ideas, share strategies, and work together. So working together is very, very critical. The last thing maybe I want to mention, which actually tied nicely also to the last comment as well as the earlier comment, we are already a year into our work, a little bit over a year. We are 100% volunteers. As I said before, it's very hard to maintain. And funding is very critical. So I hope that people talk to as many people as possible to help grassroots movements, support grassroots movements, support parents' organization. So because we are the army, we are the soldiers. A lot of people are still afraid. A lot of people are still, not sure what to do about this. But the one that decided to get up and fight, we are the army, and we are willing to stick our neck out. So if you're not able to do it personally and volunteer, if you can able to support, that's really the livelihood of organization, because staying completely functioning on volunteer force, it's very complicated, and the funding is very critical.
Thank you again, Elana.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you.